Good morning and welcome to the Kennebec Valley Chamber of Commerce Business Insider Breakfast. My name is Ross Cunningham. I'm the President and CEO of the Kennebec Valley Chamber. A special thank you to our sponsors, Kennebec Savings Bank and Central Maine Power. There are a multitude of concerns when it comes to running a business in the Kennebec Valley, and one commonly overlooked issue is the security of our facilities and our employees. So here today to talk about this is Sheriff Reardon and Sergeant John Bourque of the Kennebec County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Reardon has been in law enforcement for over 22 years and has held numerous positions throughout the region. Sergeant Bourque started with the Kennebec County Sheriff's Office as an explorer at the age of 16, and 19 years later is still here doing great service for our community. So it's my pleasure to introduce Sheriff Reardon and Sergeant John Bourque.
So what brought us here today? For the last couple of years, the commercial businesses have been victim to a number of burglaries. Those burglaries are tied to the opiate epidemic. Last summer, I was with Ross at the opening of a restaurant out on Route 17, and the owner had gone home quickly to check on his house and come back for the opening of his restaurant. In that short time, he was burglarized. And I was in uniform at the opening, and you could see the distress on his face. So I reached out to Ross the next morning. What can we do to help the businesses start thinking about their security? I know that I've seen Jeff at our place in the last 6 months from Burt Security, and we've invested $18,000 worth of security measures just at the Kennebec County Sheriff's Office. But the question is, have you thought about your security lately? When the deputies show up on site and there's, and I'm not kidding you, a VHS recorder and they're still using tapes, it's probably time to upgrade. So again, the burglaries there was a number of them last summer to the tune of about 60 that we handled just here in Kennebec County. One of the businesses lost $17,000 from one burglary. They had forgot to do their nightly drop, $17,000. I know that there's a lot of small businesses in here. If you lost $17,000, it would be very difficult to overcome that. So we have some suggestions in a short PowerPoint where we'd like to at least get you thinking about your security and maybe upgrading it. All those upgrades and anything that you can do to offer the deputies help when they're responding would be greatly appreciated. Your security and your business's security starts with you. We're there to facilitate an investigation and catch the person who did it. But again, it starts with you. Sergeant Bourque.
Thank you. Quick PowerPoint. I don't want to bore you to death with PowerPoint. Let's just go over whatever a burglary is first. Well, we got the DA here. She could talk about it more than I can. But Maine law defines burglary as a person who enters or surreptitiously remains in a structure knowing that person is not licensed or privileged to do so with the intent to commit a crime therein. Means they went in to do bad stuff. Usually the crime therein is theft. We'll blow through the first part of this. Just a couple quick statistics for you. As the sheriff said, it's on the rise, and the DA again will be able to tell you this is probably all related to drug enforcement. A little bit about myself is I've been with the sheriff's office 19 years, probably 12 of that as a drug investigator. I got out of that to become a supervisor, and well, in a roundabout way, I'm still doing drug enforcement because all the property crimes I'm dealing with now are all, majority of them are fueled by drugs. So in 2014, the Sheriff's Office responded to 69 reported burglaries. 8 of those were classified as commercial burglaries. And then in 2015, we responded to 117 reported burglaries. 20 of them were determined to be commercial burglaries. So it's on the rise, and I can tell you in 2016, it's already trending upward again. Those numbers don't always reflect what business owners are going through. Simply because of the way FBI has us code things out. It may not include businesses that were broken into and nothing happened inside. I can tell you out of the 20, I handled all 20 of those in 2015. There's probably another 15 or 20 that didn't meet the definition where someone broke a window, looked inside. I caught a guy that did, how many did he do? 6, just for us. Augusta PD covered, many more, Monmouth PD covered. He was doing them statewide. basically, but he told me that there was probably another half dozen in Kennebec County. He took me to all the businesses and showed me them, and some just didn't even report them. He pushed in an air conditioner at one business, and as he was getting ready to go in through the hole, a car drove through the parking lot, so he didn't break in. So those numbers don't accurately reflect what's going on, but I can tell you it's a lot higher than 20 businesses that were hit. It's probably more like 60 to 80 in one way, shape, or form. So I actually mentioned to the sheriff when we were going through this spring with the rash that we were having, because it's getting a lot worse, that we need to do something, whether community outreach or have a seminar at the sheriff's office. And then he approached me and said, can we do something here? So this is perfect. The new burglar isn't just breaking a window and going in. The guy I'm talking about that did many, he was cutting holes in walls with power saws. He was going through roofs. He was finding vents that he was going through. The $17,000 that the sheriff is talking about, that was an organized group doing it statewide, and they'd actually stolen power tools from DOT in one end of the state, and then they were traversing the state, cutting holes through the back of stores and going in at night. And the biggest hindrance to that case was, as he said, VHS, or people that were using some sort of security system, and then they leave their hard drive or whatever recording piece of equipment they had, they leave it right out on their desk. So the guy would just take it with him. A no-brainer. Yeah. Or they give us a VHS that's been recorded over 7 times, and it is what it is.
The only reason we have a VCR, yeah, those still exist. The only reason we have a VCR still at the sheriff's office is because some of the security measures that some of the small businesses have include VHS tapes as a medium for recording their crimes and have it inside. So honestly, if you don't have a CDR recordable, you're about 20 years behind times right now. So Jeff can hook you up with that.
So we'll just go over a couple of things that we came up with for prevention mindset, and then we'll take questions after. But I want to blow through this. One thing I want to stress is no building can be made burglar-proof, but you can make them burglar-resistant. Bert's can definitely help you with that. Throw you a plug there. Most burglaries happen at night when it's dark, because these people, well, I'll reserve comment. The single biggest deterrent is lights. Inside, no. I know it's a cost to leave your lights on, but we have a business, and I don't want to throw them under the bus, but they have been hit several times over the last 3 years. The lights are on until about midnight. They're on a timer. They go off, and they get hit probably between 2 and 4 in the morning, and then they call us at 6 or 7 in the morning, and then we go out and pick up the mess and say, why didn't you leave the lights on? Because it is so lit up. It's like being in this room when the lights are on. They're cowards, and anyway. We can deter burglars by installing cameras, as we talked about, something that's maybe not VHS, something that's circa at least 1998. Cameras and alarms, post signs that show you have them. That'll turn a lot of people away. We've interviewed a lot of burglars over the years, usually catching them through drug crimes, but then they admit to other things to fuel their drug habit. But they say if we see signs, we see whatever, we stay away. Lights and signs are the biggest thing. Another thing, with the guy that was cutting holes in walls and going through the ceiling, clear away some shrubs and other places, other things for them to hide behind. He would hide, and he would just stay there for an hour or two, just watch what was going on. And several times he'd watch the business owner close and leave and come and go. He wasn't a dangerous person to people, but he was just figuring out what was going on. Sometimes he'd trip the alarm and hang out there, and he'd admit that the police drove through, checked it out, and they were gone, and we never saw him. So you got to help us out a little bit too. We're not magic. We do the best we can, but something that's pretty important that a lot of people overlook, keep a log of your keys. I know you're small businesses, but sometimes you have employee turnover, and keys are gone, and next thing you know, we're coming, and you can't figure out why things are missing. They just let themselves in. Don't leave cash in the building if at all possible, and if you do, use a safe. Make sure it's in a well-lit area. I know that sounds counterproductive and counter to what everybody's been told, but a lot of these guys, if a room's dark, they'll spend a lot of time in there. Put a light on in the room. They're less likely to hang out in there. And then mount it to the floor if you can, or to the wall. Most of them have a means to secure it. Make it harder for them, because a lot of them will just take the safe and then go work on it away from wherever they were. Oh, and did I mention, leave some lights on. One thing that's important is don't lock a burglar inside. So make sure you, one thing we suggest, I know it's not always possible, but try to have 2 people present when you're opening and closing your business. And before you close, check your bathrooms, your closets, your basements. Make sure you didn't lock somebody inside, because we get that a few times a year too. And that's pretty unnerving when you realize you were in the building alone with somebody when you locked up, just to come to find out they were hidden inside your building somewhere. If you suspect your business has been burglarized, if you come to work in the morning and you have left your lights on like I asked, your lights are off or a window's broken, don't go inside. Call your local police agency or 911. We'll get there as soon as we can. And please don't be helpful. Don't clean it up. I know you want to clean up your mess. You've probably got to open fairly soon. You want to get things moving. But if you clean up the mess, you've probably just removed any evidence that we've had to work with. A lot of times our hands are tied. I have several unsolved burglaries just because there's no evidence, and it's not because there wasn't evidence. It's probably been removed.
Something as simple as we had a dusty footprint on a floor, and that was able to be tracked back. A more surprising one from this summer, tobacco cud where they were chewing. They spit it on the floor. So we saved that. And then this particular person went through a very small window and scraped himself. He had gloves on and all that other stuff, but he scraped his elbow. And there was a small amount of DNA on a shard of glass. So the smallest of evidence, whether it's dusty footprints, hairs, fibers, a speck of blood, that can all be used. So while we appreciate that you need to get your business going, we would love to catch the guy so it doesn't victimize anybody else.
So that's the end of the PowerPoint. We'll take questions. Again, thank you. Stay alert. Look around and support your local sheriff. He's right here. I'll take some questions. Or sheriff will
on the horizon.
No, I think I've been promoted as high as I'm going to go. Both of us, we've tapped out. Any questions that we can help anybody with? And let me add one more thing. Yes, we're very busy, but if a business has a question or a concern, or they want to just come down and look and say, hey, what do you think? We're willing to do that. Or consult with a professional, change your locks. Well, I know we use Burt's, and they're fantastic from everything. I've brought down locks, I've brought down different things, said, what do you think of this thing? And they've said, oh, that's a whatever, how do you defeat this? And they can tell you, they've helped us several times, so not only at the office, but with actual investigations. So with that, I'll take any questions you have, and I'm willing to come down or send a detective down to take a look at your business and say, this is what I would do to change it.
The crimes have been drug related. Is that seems to be the predominant, or do you see like identity theft type burglaries or anything else?
It's crimes of opportunity. 85% of the crimes that occur, of the people that I have housed and that Megan deals with, 85% of those can be tied to substance abuse. The majority of that is opiate related. I know that Dr. White and Mike Mitchell and a number of you were at the Opiate Forum. Those numbers are real. Everybody inside that jail, a good number of them were chasing their next high from opiates. I can't think of a burglary that wasn't tied to opiates that happened this summer. I can't think of one.
I've never seen a burglary in 19 years that's been someone's going in looking for information of some sort or to steal something specific. It's always to get something so they can turn it over quickly so they can take the money to go get something they want or need. So something that may, I didn't put it in the PowerPoint, but something that we've had is smash windows and they just grab something and pull it out, smash and grab type things. If you have laptops, computers, and things, try to keep them away from windows if you can. I'm not saying put bars on windows, they're aesthetically not pleasing, but and Maine is really relatively a safe community. Central Maine especially, we're pretty safe. We're fortunate in that respect, but this stuff is on the rise. Home burglaries are increasing, but the commercial burglaries are exploding because I think people are realizing there's more bang for their buck. You go into a house, you might find a homeowner in there that may be armed, may not be armed, or you may just find loose change, but they know if they go into a business, there's a chance that they could find $17,000 or $10,000, and we're seeing it happen over and over and over again. And they're traveling statewide. There's not just one little group. There's several. They're coordinated groups that are working together to do this. So.
The new thing now is communication equipment, cell phone stores, multimedia stores, your Verizon stores, US Cellular, stuff like that. Those are big targets. They go in, they clean out the phones. Well, now they have, those phones are valuable, not only valuable to the criminal element, but valuable to the gangs for communication. But what was happening during the initial part of the war was they were going in and stealing track phones to initiate IEDs. and that was a big business. So once those track phones, this stuff was stolen out of Walmart. Walmart was having 20 or 30 of those track phones stolen a day in Waterville when I was working there. But those were used to initiate IEDs. And that was happening, those were going from here across seas to probably the Chinese, Russians, and making its way into the Middle East. So, I mean, that's a scary statistic, but that's how far reach some of these just small petty crimes that we think are just small and petty. There's a big reach. I started a drug case here in Augusta, Maine that went all the way to Arizona, all the way down to Florida. It had ties to Thailand. So just because it happens here in rural Maine doesn't mean that it's not far reaching. You know, John, who worked for the DEA in Portland, saw that time and time again. He's been all over the U.S. Chasing large drug cases. Just because it happens here doesn't mean it's not big.
Okay, go ahead.
Along those lines, as you're finding that these are interconnected, how is your coordination with other law enforcement agencies within our region and then, you know, outside of Maine?
As of now, it's fantastic, if you don't mind. In the past, it's been very competitive, but right now, we talk on a daily basis with, like for me personally, Augusta PD, State Police. Everybody's really cooperating, and the sheriff has initiated a information sharing group. We met just last week, we met a few weeks before that, and we're all getting to the table and sharing everything we've got to try to, that's the only way we're gonna knock these guys back and slow it down. We're never gonna stop it, but we can slow it down, so.
You know, in the meeting last week, there were probably 25 law enforcement agencies. It was a virtual alphabet soup in that room, but everybody was represented. And what we found was we were talking about groups or criminals that everybody had a little bit of information on, or somebody knew by a different name because they never used their real name. I looked at a field interview report, and I thought I was looking at my wife's grocery list because there are names like cheese, bologna, sauce. Really, those are street names. But then when you start finding out their real names and you started information sharing, a lot of the departments realized that, boy, we probably could have gotten to this more efficiently had we been communicating better. Sometimes when it comes to law enforcement, there becomes a silo effect, where you're just kind of working in your own box and you're worried about your own town. But things are far more reaching than that. In this age of technology and contact and social media, there's stuff that's happening interstate. People come up here or go down to Massachusetts or other New England states, New York, guns that are sold up here or stolen up here, and make their way down to the cities. Boston, Mayor Rollins went down there with Jared Mills, and they went to a conference recently where they're like, is there anything you guys can do to help us out? Because they're finding the majority of their gun crimes, the guns are being purchased in New Hampshire or Maine.
I have to add here, the reason that meeting took place is because of Sheriff Reardon. We never had that in District 4 before Kennebec and Somerset County. So he called the meeting, he got everyone, every law enforcement agency in Kennebec County and Somerset County to show up. And it was amazing. And he got the FBI there and the DEA there. So now we're having a federal presence in Kennebec County like we've never had before. And it's because he invited them. So thank you very much.
It's not just me, it took them showing up. You know, and the district attorney, I could have been standing there with the crickets sounding in the room, but no, just know that the District 4 chiefs in both Kennebec and Somerset County, including the DA's office, is very committed to this effort. We need to communicate better. Part of that is that we just need to get together and come to an agreement about how we're going to do it. Thankfully, the commissioners approved an analyst position for me. We're bringing back a person that was employed with us since. He was employed with us as recently as 2014. He worked for the National Guard, but he's going to be analyzing all the criminal data that we get and putting that out to other agencies. I think that's a big thing that we need to do. He'll be a regional resource. So.
You talked about the VCR tape and all the rest of that. Could you talk briefly about how they might use a cloud and a camera that could go outside the premises?
Yeah, some companies that we've dealt with that have had stuff, they've not only got their hard drive, but a lot of cellular technology, and they grab that through their alarm company. But as technology improves, you need to upgrade your systems, and the cloud has been huge for us because we go into a place, and there's a dust spot where the hard drive was. They said, hang on, they fire up their laptop, get online, and we've been able to grab the video. It's pretty good quality lately.
The most amazing security system I've ever seen belongs to a convenience store in Waterville. And you couldn't steal a stick of gum out of there without 14 people knowing. Honestly, it's that particular store has better security than some of the banks that we've responded to. It is fantastic, and it's worth every dime because they had a shoplifter problem, and it was affecting their overhead in a big way. So this investment that they put into their security virtually stopped all theft from their store. I mean, it was amazing. And to go in there, and they have cloud technology where they recall from a hard drive that's off-site, perfect for us because they can just call up and get us our evidence, and it's right there. So.
Yeah, and one thing with security systems and cameras specific, just don't install it and expect that it's going to work. You actually need to review it. You need to upgrade it. You need to follow through it. Because a lot of times, like, yeah, I got this. You look and looks like you're watching a ghost run through a snowstorm, and well, it just worked last week. You've got to stay on top of it to make sure it's working, and then do test runs. And I'm sure Bertz will talk to you about it. But you've got to do test runs. You got to go through and make sure you're getting good images, not just a camera that shows on the register like this. Because when I go in and pull the video, this is when I see a guy stealing from a register. I'm looking at the top of his head. Yeah, you're looking for employee theft, and that's a big aspect, something you need to consider. But maybe you need to install a second camera that's watching a door or window or another approach to that register. So there's a lot of things to consider with security systems. And like I said, I'm willing to come down, take a look, review some tape with you, show you, hey, this would help, or find a professional that can help you.
There's a lot of the grab type, getting equipment and things like that. What about like with banks and stuff? Have you seen an increase with the robberies into those public places as well, during business hours, et cetera?
Yeah, there's been a steady tick of bank robberies to the point where when I started almost 20 years ago, you get a bank robbery, it was a huge deal. You called the FBI, they send 20 people. Now you get a bank robbery, we're still mandated to call the FBI. They say, yeah, whatever. They don't. There's so many of them, they can't keep up. It's just a couple of detectives that go in there and process it like any other crime scene. So it's steady. I'm sure you see it in the newspaper and on the news quite often.
What do you encourage consumers to do, in terms of as business owners and such, we can be educating our own staff, our own population within our businesses, but what do you recommend that as consumers, if we're out in the public, what do you recommend?
Just be a good witness. Certainly don't intervene. Comply with whatever sort of request or demands made. Most of these people don't, engage the other people in the business if they're doing something during the day. Just be a good witness. Make note of everything from their footwear to their voice. And if you happen to be outside, make note of their car. Because a lot of times they'll be in their car, they'll walk right. We've seen it with a lot of the pharmacy robbers. They'll walk up to the store so they don't gain suspicion, like you and I, and then they get to the door and they put on a mask. And so we identify them outside. So cameras outside are just as important. But if you're a witness and you see something suspicious, a guy putting on a mask, well, don't follow him in, but grab his plate number because that would be huge. Just be a good witness, I guess, is the biggest thing.
Bill, her question. The daily interaction. What are some protocols that we can work with our staff or offices on if someone does come in looking for money or trying to get a refund? In my case, in the insurance industry, we kind of have that suspicion that it's drug related, and the situation escalates past comfortable for my staff. And what are the protocols? What are the steps that we can bring back and say,
Be diligent. Be diligent. But be steadfast too. You obviously have some rules that you have to play by, and you need to understand that. If it becomes uncomfortable, I think at that point that it's probably advantageous that you call law enforcement. In a lot of cases, those people that are trying to pull off fraud with businesses, whether it's bulk returns or bogus claims of loss or anything like that, it's usually somebody that's already on our radar. And as you know, it's usually chasing a fix in most cases. We saw it back in the early 2000s where prescription pads were being stolen out of doctors' offices, and they ratcheted that down some. So now it became electronic verifications and phone verifications from the doctor's offices to the pharmacies. So that rolled that out, but that didn't keep people from now calling up, overhearing a phone conversation and calling in bogus prescriptions and stuff like that. So if there's a will and a way, it usually gets found by the criminal element. So again, diligent, steadfast. If it becomes uncomfortable, call law enforcement.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to call the police, just to add on that, because just like the professionals network, just like you guys network, even the low-level people that are doing this network, they find out that you're agencies called the police 2 times, they're gonna say, I'm not going back there. They call the cops. It's really, word gets out very quickly. So, one more question, I guess?
What do you think I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
What do you think the outlook is moving forward in terms of, the trends are disturbing? Do you think we can stem this tide? And, do you think that's realistic?
I think that we can certainly do preventative measures that would lessen it. I spent 6 years as a drug detective, and there were days where I felt like I was trying to bail the ocean with a teaspoon. It's nonstop. Where there's demand for the product, there'll be a clientele for it, and that clientele is most often, if they get a habit or an addiction to it, they'll overrun their income and have to seek income by other means, and that's what brings us to these burglaries or crimes. We have to be diligent in our jobs. We have to continue to communicate, but there are some trends that led to this. When we ratcheted down on the prescription drugs, the cheap alternative was heroin. Opiate is a physical addiction. Being addicted to an opiate, you can replace one with the other. So when the prescription pills got ratcheted down tightly and tightened on because of all the pharmacy robberies, what stepped in was heroin, cheap heroin, and in some cases acetafentanyl or fentanyl from out of state. And most of that stuff occurs or manifests itself outside of the United States, particularly Mexico and the drug cartels down there. It's coming in through loose border security, and if we don't do something to tighten that and ratchet it down on the heroin epidemic, which the state is doing and our legislature is taking steps, the bill that was signed yesterday, but if we don't do it holistically, thinking as ourselves as a whole country, then it's not going to get better.
All right. Thank you very much to Sergeant Bourque, Sheriff Reardon. Please be sure to join us this Friday night at the Kenny Awards. Thank you very much.